Hello everyone. I shall talk about 5-year plans of China. The 5-year plans are a series of social and economic development initiatives issued since 1953 in the People's Republic of China. Since 1949, China has shaped the economy of China through the plenary sessions and the Central Committee and National Congress. The party plays a leading role in establishing the foundations and principles, mapping strategies for economic development, setting growth targets, and launching reforms. Planning is a key characteristic of the normally socialist economies, and one plan established for the entire country normally contains detailed economic development guidelines for all its regions. In order to more accurately reflect China's transition from a Soviet-style command economy to a socialist market economy, socialism with Chinese characteristics, the name of the 11th 5-year program of 2006 and 2010 was changed to Guideline. First plan, 1953 to 1957. Having restored a variable economic base, the leadership under Mao Zedong, Zhou Enlai, and other revolutionary veterans were prepared to embark on an intensive program of industrial growth and socialization. For this purpose, the administration adopted the Soviet economic model, based on state ownership in the modern sector, larger collective units in agriculture, and centralized economic planning. The Soviet approach to economic development was manifested in the first 5-year plan, 1953 to 1957. The key tasks highlighted in the plan were: concentrate efforts on the construction of 694 large and medium-sized industrial projects, including 156 with the aid of the Soviet Union. Lay out the primary foundations for China's socialist industrialization. Develop agricultural producers' cooperatives to help in the socialist transformation of the agriculture and handicraft industries. Put capitalist industry and commerce on the track of state capitalism. Facilitate the socialist transformation of private industry and commerce. Second plan, 1958 to 1962. This plan was created to accomplish several tasks, including expanding heavy industry in China, furthering the cause of socialism by transferring more property to collective ownership, encouraging the economic growth of China through industry, agriculture, handicrafts, transportation, and commerce, cultivating cultural and scientific development of the Chinese people, strengthening national defense, and improving living standards in China. Fifth plan, 1976 to 1980. The central government stipulated the 1976 to 1985 10-year plan outline of developing national economy in 1975, which included the fifth 5-year plan. In March 1978, the 10-year development outline was amended because the original version in 1975 stipulated that by 1985, steel and petroleum outputs should reach 60 and 250 million tons, respectively, and 120 large projects, including 10 steel production bases, 9 non-ferrous metal bases, 8 coal bases, and 10 oil and gas fields should be built. To achieve these goals, the government would invest 70 billion yuan in infrastructure construction, equaling total national investment over the previous 28 years. These were impossible targets and ran counter to economic development rules. The plan put forward suggestions to set up an independent and comparatively complete industrial system, a national economic system, from 1978 to 1980. With the implementation of the plan, considerable success was achieved. In 1977, the gross output value of industry and agriculture reached 505.5 billion yuan, 4.4% above target, and representing an increase of 10.4% compared with the previous year. Gross domestic product for 1978 reached 301 billion yuan, an increase of 12.3% compared with 1977, and an increase of 19.4% compared with 1976. The session emphasized that the development should follow economic rules and proposed readjustment and reform measures, which indicated that national economic development had entered a new phase, one of exploration and development. In April 1979, the central government formally put forward new principles of readjustment, reform, rectification, and improvement. Sixth Plan, 1981 to 1985. This plan took some time to draft. It was first planned as part of the 10-year National Economic Development Plan outline for 1976 to 1985. In February 1980, the State Council decided to redraft the country's mid- and long-term plans. It convened a seminar to discuss the compilation of the Sixth Five-Year Plan. To that end, the State Planning Commission and related departments also carried out extensive research and calculation work on the compilation of the plan, and organized related experts to conduct scientific appraisals. The 1982 National Planning Meeting was again mainly focused on the drafting of the plan. It was only in December that year that the fifth meeting of the Fifth National People's Congress officially ratified the plan. It was a more comprehensive plan compared to its predecessors, since it adjusted and set national economic development onto a more stable and healthy track, with general objectives to keep pursuing the principle of adjust, reform, rectify, and improve, further overcame the various challenges to economic development, achieve a decisive turn in the fiscal situation, lay a solid foundation for the advancement of national economic and social development under the next planning period. Specific objectives included to achieve an average annual growth rate of 5% for industrial and agricultural products, to assemble the country's scientific and technological base for scientific and technological research, and to promote the application of new technologies, and to strenuously develop education, science, and culture to accelerate the construction of an ideological and material civilization, to strengthen production and improve economic efficiency to increase the government's revenue, to gradually increase expenditure on economic and cultural construction, and to secure a balance between fiscal revenue and expenditure and credit. To strenuously develop trade, make effective use of foreign capital, and actively introduce advanced technology to meet domestic needs. To strengthen environmental protection efforts. The plan was overall a great success. The national economy maintained a stable rate of growth. The average annual growth rate for industrial and agricultural products was 11%. The gross national product in 1985 reached 778 billion yuan, that is 113 billion US dollars, signifying an average annual growth of 10% after inflation since 1980. Progress was achieved in infrastructure construction and technological updating. Total investment in fixed assets for publicly owned enterprises reached 530 billion yuan. 496 middle and large projects were constructed and started, and another 200,000 projects were transformed and updated. China's foreign trade transactions and technological exchange entered a new phase. On the World Export Volume Ranking, China rose from number 28 in 1980 to number 10 in 1984. Seventh Plan, 1986 to 1990. In March 1986, the State Council submitted the Seventh Five-Year Plan for National Economic and Social Development of the People's Republic of China, 1986 to 1990, to the fourth session of the Sixth National People's Congress for review and ratification. It was the first time in China's history that an all-round plan for social and economic development was created at the start of a new five-year plan. The fundamental principles and guidelines of the seventh five-year plans were to put reform at the top of the agenda and coordinate economic development with reform, to maintain a basic balance between overall social demand and supply, between the national budget, credit, and materials, to improve economic efficiency, especially that of product quality, to properly handle the relations between efficiency and growth rate, and quality and quantity, to adapt to the changing structure of social demand and demands of economic modernization, and to further adjust the industrial structure, to regulate fixed asset investments, readjust the investment structure, and speed up the construction of the energy, communications, telecommunications, and raw materials industries, to further open up to the outside world, combining domestic economic growth with expanding external economic and technological exchanges, to further improve the material and cultural life of all Chinese people. Specific goals of economic development set out in the plan were production goals for major industrial and agricultural products by 1990 were between 425 and 450 billion tons for grain, 4.25 million tons for cotton, 550 billion kWh for electricity, 1 billion tons for raw coal, 150 million tons for crude oil, and between 55 and 58 million tons for steel. Freight volume was set at 9.4 billion tons. Investment in fixed assets was set at 1,296 billion yuan, with fixed assets projected to grow by 600 billion yuan, to increase total import and export volumes by 35% within the 5 years, while expanding the scale of foreign investment and advanced technology. Further, goals were set to increase the actual consumption of both urban and rural residents by 5% a year, and at the same time keeping the basic balance between the national budget, credit, material, and foreign exchange. In the field of education, to gradually popularize and implement the 9-year compulsory education scheme and train 5 million professionals, twice that during the previous planning period. 8th Plan, 1991 to 1995. In March 1991, the 4th session of the 7th National People's Congress, NPC, approved the State Council's report entitled The 10-Year Layout for National Economy and Social Development and 8th Five-Year Plan. Under Deng Xiaoping's leadership, this plan marked the start of a new phase in China's development. The national economy maintained its growth momentum during this time. Gross national product in 1985 reached 5.76 trillion yuan, $730 billion, 4.3 times higher than that in 1980. China's economy experienced an annual growth of 11%, 4 percentage points higher than that during the 7th five-year planning period. 845 large and medium-sized infrastructure projects were completed and put into production, as were 374 technical innovation projects. In terms of transportation infrastructure, 5,800 kilometers of trunk railway, 3,400 kilometers of double-track lines, and 2,600 kilometers of electrified railway were built. Road lengths were increased by 105,000 kilometers, including 1,600 kilometers of highway. Significant achievements were also made in the reform of economic system. The new financial system, with tax decentralization at its core, and the new tax system with value-added tax as its main component were set up. Policy finance and commercial finance were gradually separated. A macro-regulating system emerged, and the market started to play a more major role in resource allocation. Also mapped out were the beginning of a dominant public sector. More than 1,100 cities at country level were opened to the outside world, and 13 bounded zones and other a lot of economic development zones were set up. Foreign trade development at an astonishing pace, with total trade volume reaching 1.0145 trillion US dollars at an annual growth rate of 19.5%, higher than 12.8% to 10.6% growth rates during the 6th and 7th five-year periods, respectively. The volume of annual export volume was 100 billion yuan, accounting for 3% of the world's commodity trade. Major improvements were also made to people's lives. Per capita income was 1,578 yuan in 1995, $230. Retail sales reached 6.7275 trillion yuan, representing an annual growth rate of 10.6% as compared to 3.3% during the 7th five-year period. Savings deposit balances in urban and rural areas reached 3 trillion yuan, 2 trillion higher than at the end of the previous planning period. Ninth Plan, 1996 to 2000. The fifth plenary session of the 14th CPC Central Committee adopted the proposal on the ninth five-year plan on national economy and social development and long-range objectives to the year 2010 on 28th of September 1995. It was the first medium-length plan made under a socialist market economy and a cross-century development strategy. The basic tasks stipulated in the plan were to complete the second phase in the modernization drive, to cap population growth at 300 million by 2000, to quadruple per capita GNP as compared to 1980, to eliminate poverty, to speed up the establishment of a modern enterprise system. Long-range objectives to the year 2010 was to double 2000's GNP and to continue to build the socialist market economy system. 10th Plan, 2001 to 2005. The basic tasks set out in the 10th Plan were: achieve an average annual economic growth rate of above 7%, achieve a GDP of 12,500 billion yuan by 2005, calculated at 2000 prices, and per capita GDP of 9,400 yuan. Increase the number of urban employees and the number of surplus rural laborers transferred to the cities to 40 million each, thereby controlling registered urban unemployment rates at above 5%. Keep prices stable and to maintain the balance between international revenue and expenditure. Optimize and update the industrial structure, strengthen China's international competitiveness. Achieve growth for the primary, secondary, and tertiary industries at the rates of 13.51 and 36% respectively of GDP, with those employed by these industries accounting for 44.23 and 33% of the total number of employees in the country. Improve the national economy and social IT levels. Kickstart the operations of more infrastructure facilities. Bring the development disparity between regions and under effective control, and raise levels of urbanization. Raise research and development funding to more than 1.5% of GDP and strengthen science-tech innovation capabilities, thereby speeding up technological progress. Increase gross enrollment rates in junior high schools, senior high schools, and higher education institutions to over 90%, 60%, and 15% respectively. Reduce natural population growth rate to less than 9% and capture population at no more than 1.33 billion by 2005. On the environmental front, to increase forest coverage to 18.2% and the urban green rate to 35%. The total amount of major urban and rural pollutants discharged will be reduced by 10% as compared with 2000, and more measures would be taken to protect and save natural resources. The plan also set out to increase the growth rates of disposable income of urban residents and the net income of rural residents to 5% each. In addition, objectives were set to increase housing floor space per urban resident to 22 square meters by 2005 and to install 40% of all households in China with cable TV. Another key objective was to improve medical and health services in both urban and rural areas. 12th Plan, 2011 and 2015. The 12th five-year guideline was debated in mid-October 2010 at the 5th plenary session of the 17th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China, CPC, the same session in which Xi Jinping was selected as vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. A full proposal for the plan was released following the plenum and approved by the National People's Congress on the 14th of March 2011, with the goals of addressing rising inequality and creating an environment for more sustainable growth by prioritizing more equitable wealth distribution, increased domestic consumption, and improved social infrastructure and social safety nets. The plan is representative of China's efforts to rebalance its economy, shifting emphasis from investment toward consumption and development from urban and coastal areas toward rural and inland areas. Initially, by developing small cities and greenfield districts to absorb coastal migration. The plan also continues to advocate objectives set out in the 11th five-year plan to enhance environmental protection, accelerate the process of opening and reform, and emphasize Hong Kong's role as a center of international finance. The targets for the 12th five-year guidelines in 2001 was to grow of GDP by around 8%, 7% annual growth of per capita income, spend 2.2% of GDP on research and development by 2015, bring the population below 1.39 billion by 2015, readjust income distribution to stop the yawning gap, firmly curb excessive rise of housing prices, implement prudent monetary policy, intensify anti-corruption efforts to accelerate economic restructuring and deal with the complex situations in development in 2011. 13th Plan, 2016 to 2020. Focus areas: innovation. Move up in the value chain by abandoning old heavy industry and building up bases of modern information-intensive infrastructure. Achieve significant results in innovation-driven development. Balancing. Bridge the welfare gaps between countryside and cities by distributing and managing resources more efficiently. Greening. Develop environmental technology industry, as well as ecological living and ecological culture. Achieve an overall improvement in the quality of the environment and ecosystems, opening up deeper participation in supranational power structures, more international cooperation. Sharing. Encourage people of China to share the fruits of economic growth as to bridge the existing farewell gaps. Healthcare. Implement universal healthcare proposed in 2020 Health Action Plan. 14th Plan, 2021 to 2025. Economists expect the plan's target growth rate for the period to exceed 5% annually. The 2020 to 2025 plan is anticipated to have aggressive goals on sustainable energy in order to reach China's announced goals of carbon neutrality by no later than 2060. Broadly outlined in late October 2020, the new plan aims at China becoming a moderate developed economy by 2035 with a per capita GDP of above $30,000, nearly 3 times the 2020 level. It anticipates future growth as largely based on domestic consumption of goods and services, and aims to reduce disparities between urban and rural living standards. The proposals of China's 14th Five-Year Plan 2021-2025 for economic and social development will be assessed during the 5th plenary session of the 19th Communist Party of China Central Committee later this month. This top-level policy blueprint bodes well for the country and will help bring certainty to the world. The Five-Year Plan model represents China's valuable development experience, which stresses optimizing economic governance with a holistic approach and striking by a dynamic equilibrium among multi-targets. For those interested in China's development miracle, it is important to understand how the country's five-year plans are formulated. First, China's plan reflects a clear development roadmap of a country with nearly 1/5 of the world's total population, including 400 million middle-income earners. China's stable development benefits the world. The Chinese leadership has been steadfast in approaching major issues concerning China's development from a long-term, strategic, and systematic perspective. Its unique five-year planning mechanism has ensured the country's gradual and concrete steps toward its goal of modernization, providing predictable opportunities to the world. Moreover, based on broad social consensus, the country's five-year plan features stable and consistent policy, bringing a desired degree of certainty to overseas investors. The decision-making process involves input from thousands of think tanks, government agencies, universities, prominent scholars, and professionals. It also takes into account extensive consultations from primary-level representatives. From August the 16th to the 29th, over 1 million suggestions for the 14th Five-Year Plan were received from netizens, providing valuable input for the decision-making process. As the process demonstrates, China's five-year plans are not designed to attract votes or score political points, as is done in the West by some politicians. They are aimed at realizing the people's aspirations for a better life. Once a plan is decided, the leadership ensures its implementation. The country has targeted measures to perform tasks outlined in the plan and a strict supervision mechanism to make sure the goals are achieved. Development goals set for the 13th Five-Year Plan period, 2016 to 2020, are about to be accomplished as scheduled, evidence that the leadership keeps its promises. China's well-designed planning and implementation model serves as a key reason for the country's consistent economic growth over the decades. Meanwhile, its long-term prosperity provides great opportunities to foreign companies. During the 13th five-year plan period, China's business environment has seen remarkable progress, with lowered business operating costs and optimized services for enterprises. Foreign firms' confidence in the Chinese market was strengthened, and many have expanded their footprints in the country. Well, thank you for watching.